Long before satellites monitored our cities from orbit, Bhubaneswar measured time and climate by the movement of shadow across stone. This is Ekamra Kshetra, the ancient temple city. Its original ecological contract, as articulated by civil engineer and legal strategist Professor Kapileswar Mishra, was built on a precise understanding of its environment. The builders of complexes like Lingaraja organized settlement, tank, and shrine as a single functioning landscape, using mass and elevation to manage temperature and shade. The Gangua River and traditional temple tanks operated simultaneously as ritual spaces and a practical water management grid. This civilization engineered a self-sustaining urban microclimate that endured for centuries because it treated ecology and settlement as an indivisible system. Today, that equilibrium is fractured. The deep shade of the traditional city has been largely replaced by the radiating heat of unmitigated concrete. Diagnosing this shift requires a rigorous standard of evidence. Professor Mishra approaches this crisis by synthesizing the technical discipline of his engineering background at IIT Kharagpur with the structural frameworks of constitutional law. The scale of this departure is rigorously documented in independent, peer-reviewed satellite research, establishing the change with enough rigor to compel action. This chart shows the expansion of built-up land within the Bhubaneswar Municipal Corporation area. Between 1990 and 2021, that urban mass more than doubled, expanding from roughly 18.8% to 43.2%. Simultaneously, the city's dense vegetation cover collapsed to exactly 12%. The direct consequence of this land use shift is a 10°C spike in the pre-monsoon mean land surface temperature, rising from 27.5 degrees in 1990 to 37.5 degrees in 2021. This data relies on Landsat thermal bands. It measures the physical ground surface radiating heat back into the city, rather than standard ambient air temperature. This disruption extends into the ground. The natural drainage network, anchored by the Gangua River and its tributary channels, has been systematically choked. Official municipal audits identified channel constriction, active encroachment, siltation, and untreated wastewater discharge as the primary drivers of recurrent urban flooding. Because the current crisis is a mathematically measured failure of urban infrastructure, it requires a precise engineering-based remedy. The mechanism for enforcing that remedy already exists. The Supreme Court's interpretation of Article 21 of the Constitution establishes that a pollution-free environment is integral to the right to life. This is reinforced by Article 48A, which places a binding directive on the state to protect the environment, and Article 51AG, which places a corresponding duty on every citizen. The National Green Tribunal wields specific suo motu authority, meaning it can independently initiate legal action against environmental harm without waiting for a private petitioner. By binding precise satellite data to these constitutional provisions, ecological restoration operates not just as a goal, but as a legally enforceable mandate. To execute this mandate by Vision 2036, the Ekamra Covenant proposes 8 specific, actionable commitments. This dashboard outlines the cool, canopy, and restore targets. The mandate requires reducing extreme hotspot temperatures by up to 5°C, securing a 40% tree canopy goal, and planting 10 million native trees against a strict plantable land budget. The sponge and water commitments aim to eliminate preventable flood fatalities and require the publication of a GIS water atlas, an inventory mapping the ownership and encroachment status of every temple tank and lake. The circular rules demand full wastewater treatment and 90% material diversion away from landfills. Finally, the energy target requires the municipal corporation to supply at least 30% of its operational electricity from locally generated renewable sources. Every commitment relies on a strict accountability chain, carrying a verified 2026 baseline, a designated agency, and a public tracking dashboard. Setting targets without establishing scientifically audited baselines reduces urban planning to mere manifesto writing. A climate doctrine that protects the tree canopy but ignores the people living beneath it is an engineering exercise, not a covenant. True resilience requires climate equity. Urban restoration projects must not displace slum residents, street vendors, or informal workers without lawful rehabilitation and livelihood protection. The doctrine introduces the Ekamra Heat Action System, which mandates ward-level heat risk mapping, protected working hours for outdoor laborers, and school heat protocols. Extreme heat causes substantial illness and death that rarely make headlines. It demands the exact same readiness we apply to cyclones. Achieving climate sovereignty by Vision 2036 is a matter of maintenance, not miracles. Modern science and constitutional law must restore the ecological baseline established by the ancient temple builders.